No pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain.
Welcome to another episode of No Pain, No Gain. Entrepreneurship Made Real. Hosted by personal development coach Jay Rooke. Raw and relevant conversations about what it's really like to run a business. This is No Pain, No Gain.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of No Pain, No Gain. I'm your host, Jay Rooke, and we are here today with Hale Dwoskin, author of the New York Times bestseller, The Sedona Method. Hal, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be here.
Hal, where are you dialing in from today?
Bellingham, Washington.
Lovely, the Pacific Northwest. I'm jealous.
Yeah, I love it up here.
Wonderful. Well, folks, I'm super excited to have Hal on the show today. As we discussed in a lot of the episodes, it's not so much the traditional business tactics that keep us from our entrepreneurial goals. It's the 6 inches in between our ears and the connection with our heart space and ability to navigate those two realms that often dictate our entrepreneurial success more so than, hey, have we dialed in our business model or gotten our avatar dialed in perfectly? And so Hal has decades of experience in this realm. He was featured in the movie The Secret, which a lot of us know about, and has this long-standing body of work around his process called the Sedona Method to help us start to learn how to break free from some old emotional patterns, leaning into surrender and finding out what lies on the other side of that for us. So with that, Hal, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your work, Hal, and how you got into the Sedona Method and what it's all about.
Sure. Well, the Sedona Method is just a very simple and powerful tool to let go of the stress, tension, anxiety, and negative thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that hold you back from success, happiness, and peace.
You make it sound so simple.
Well, it actually is a lot easier or a lot more natural than we realize because we all know how to let go naturally. Young children do this naturally. We kind of train it out of them. Yep. And we all as adults do this naturally too. When our back is against the wall or when we have a really good belly laugh, that's often a release as well. Yeah. So what we show people how to do is to let go without needing to even smile. Although beautiful. You do smile a lot more as you let go.
Yes. And to your point, it's fascinating how much emotional baggage we pick up as we age. I've got boy-girl twins that are going to be turning 6 soon, and just how much of a lesson they are for how emotionally literate we actually start, even though we don't think we are. And then it's this almost losing of the consciousness of that. And it's fascinating to me as adults how much negative just crap we cling to versus the alternatives.
Yeah, well, it is weird, to put it mildly, that we think when children come, we think we're here to teach them. Yes. They're actually trying to teach us, but we don't necessarily listen because there's a lot that we know how to do from a very young age that in order to be as part of socialization and maturity into adulthood, we lose touch with that skill. Yes. And one of the skills is to not get stuck in the past. Children are totally in the moment. Yep. They're responding to what's in front of them. Now, even if it's a total fantasy world, because kids like to do that, it's still the fantasy world of the moment. They don't worry about if this is the best fantasy world. Yes. They just go for it. And as we let go, we learn that we can still do that. And since now is all there is, and the only time you can do anything about anything is now, being able to let go and have that more childlike openness to what's actually going on in life is incredibly useful, incredibly helpful, and feels fantastic.
And now, in the moment of now is also where all of our personal power lies. And so where did we start to decouple or get the path wrong where we started to move away from now and either started to overfixate on the future or the past or others' opinions, et cetera?
Well, it started with us forgetting who we are. Young children don't have this consciously, so they can be trained out of it. When you rediscover who you are as an adult, and I'm not talking about your persona, because that's different for everybody. But there's something that's universal, this presence of awareness or beingness or isness that is at the heart of every experience, positive or negative. And it's always right here, right now. And from about age, when children are born to about 2.5, they're very in touch with this. And then they get convinced that they're a person, a separate individual. Yes. And you probably saw this with your children. Didn't they go through a period where they were talking about themselves in the third person? They knew that they were supposed to be this person, but they didn't quite buy it yet.
Yep.
And then at about 2 or 2.5, thereabouts, is something called the terrible twos. And it's because children, once they think they're a person, they start trying to assert their personhood. And part of that is saying no to everything.
Yep.
And unfortunately, we get stuck in the no. There are so many situations. Actually, in my experience, every situation needs to start with a yes. If you start with a no, then you're not responding to what is. But if you start with a yes, I'll at least listen. Yes, I'll be open. Yes, I'll see if there's a new way to do this. Yes, I can open myself to being fully present with other people. When you start with that, you can still say, no, I want you to do this, and it's not mutual. No, I'm not going to do that. Right. But we've forgotten that. We generally say, how are you? No.
Right.
What's up with you? No.
Yes.
Can I do that? No. Will I do that? No. Do I want to? No.
Yes.
And that is creating barriers where there's no need for them. None.
Right. And then pinching off, that resistance of pinching off the energy flow. That's as a result of it.
Exactly.
Hale, so this body of work that you're talking about, I know I'm preaching to the choir and converted when I say this, but it's oftentimes the difference between tolerating one's life versus, or suffering through one's time here versus enjoying it and finding peace and grace. And I feel like the pursuit of this type of understanding of our emotional dynamism is something that many of us pursue when there's time, or if it's nice to, as we chase down careers and Netflix and other stuff in our life. Whereas you've made this be the focal point of your professional life. And so what led up to you wanting to commit your life to this methodology and deeper understanding of our emotional?
Oh, that's a great question. I was interested in spirituality and truth from my teenage years.
Yep.
And so I started pursuing it. And I didn't just pursue self-help or spirituality as a dabbler. When I did it at full tilt. And so I met Lester Levinson at a seminar I helped organize for another seminar leader. And I didn't notice him in the seminar, but we went out to lunch, me, the seminar leader, and the other co-organizer with Lester. And just sitting across the table from him, I knew there was something different. There was a sense of calmness, peace, love, certainty, and an absence of any inner struggle. It was palpable.
Yep.
And I said, whoa, what's that?
Right.
And all he said is you sit around the table and release. I'm going, what? This is in 1976. I had no idea what he was talking about. Yeah. But he was so intriguing. And he was such a living embodiment of what he was talking about that I said, I got to at least give it a shot. So I took the seminar, and before the seminar was even done, I had this deep intuitive knowingness, which I wasn't looking for. It just came to me that this is what I was going to dedicate my life to.
Beautiful.
That was in 1976. And 44 years later, for almost 45 now, I'm still going strong. And I've been helping people all over the world discover that they have no limits and accept the ones they impose on themselves. And unfortunately, we've all gotten very good at self-imposed limitation.
Yes.
But it doesn't need to be that way.
And talking about, I agree with you 100% that it doesn't need to be that way. And talking about that span of the year. So I was born in 77, 43 now. So you've been at this for a while.
Yeah, longer than you've been alive.
Totally. And so I'm curious if the flavor of the work has changed, because if we think about, business norms and marketing techniques and all that stuff, all of that has changed radically since 76.
Oh, yes.
But I'm curious, have you noticed from a practitioner point of view, as far as clients and the relationship to this type of work changing over the last 40 years?
Oh, dramatically,
Yeah.
dramatically. When I first got involved in this, first off, it was an outlier. There were people letting go. The 12-step community talked about it, and that was pretty much it. Even in therapy, it was more about discussing it and dealing with it and managing it. It wasn't about just letting it go. That's changed dramatically. Now everyone is talking about the importance of letting go. But when we first started, we were pretty much the only ones talking about it to a general audience, not necessarily a recovery community. Although, by the way, this helps tremendously with recovery. But so the openness to letting go and the openness and willingness of people wanting to address whatever it is that's holding them back has gone through several quantum shifts. Yeah. So now when people come to work like this, and it's not just the Sedona method, the Sedona method may be one of the better, I think it's one of the better tools for letting go, since we've been doing it for a very long time. And there are many people who copy us now. Yeah. People are coming with such an open mind to this, and the techniques have changed too. The Sedona method itself has evolved to become even more direct, more effortless to apply, and more universally applicable over the past 45 years. It's just matured in a really powerful way.
And I feel like the outside world is meeting you on the path as well, where I feel like, growing up in the 80s, at times there was such an emphasis on corporate success and things of that nature.
Yes.
And I feel that there's been a pendulum shift to us seeking deeper levels of personal mastery and less external things at times, and just a very heightened level of curiosity and desire to go deeper with ourselves.
Yes, that's definitely changed dramatically. And what's interesting is it doesn't have to be either or.
Right.
One of the things that people notice as they let go is that they actually become better at mastering their career or mastering their relationships or mastering their health by mastering themselves first.
Yeah. Yes.
If you work from the inside out, the changes are permanent and powerful. Yes. When you just change the externals, things tend to snap back to the old patterns, and you start to sabotage your success again. But if you allow yourself to let go of the limiting thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that are telling you can't succeed, then your actions become more effective. Sometimes the exact same action, when done with a different point of view, is amazingly different, the result.
1,000,000%. Are you familiar with G.P. Walsh?
No.
A heart-based practitioner type, lots of law of attraction, spirituality type of work. And he talks one day about how for one of his product launches, he hired all the best experts and funnel creators and marketers, et cetera, and said it was a total failure when it came time to launch. And then he had another product come around or service offering that he was providing. And he said he was 100% aligned with it, really felt excited, did a minimal amount of work to market it, and that it was the most successful one by far. And just that infusion of the energy that we bring to things, how powerful that can be.
Yeah, that's totally true. I've seen this with people I work with over and over and over again. Yes. It's not just saying and doing the right things, because there's so many people who are saying and doing the right things consistently, and they still are not succeeding. Whereas there are a lot of people say and do all the wrong things, and they can't help but succeed. Yes. Again, the difference is where it's coming from.
I love that. Let's pause on this and head to a commercial break, because what I want to explore after this is that exact person that you just described, the one who is saying and doing all the right things and it's not working out. And I feel like there's a lot of folks out there that are doing that, especially as prescribed by, current Western culture as what the right things look like. And there's this particular sense of betrayal, I think, of those individuals that are saying, hey, whether it's to God, universe, whomever they're throwing that missive out to, I've done everything that society and others seem to be asking of me. Where is my place at the table?
Yeah, where's my reward?
Totally. Excellent. We'll dive into that when we return from the break. I'm your host, Jay Rooke. We are here today with Hale Dwoskin, author of the New York Times best-selling book, The Sedona Method. We'll be right back after the break.
Are you an entrepreneur currently in the thick of it? No Pain, No Gain is the right podcast for you. JRooke.com.
Hey everyone, Jay Rooke here. We are here today with Corey Willis. Corey is amazing at helping people find and monetize their gifts. And I think one of the things that we're seeing go on a global scale right now is that everyone's starting to re-explore their evaluation to their own life path and their work and what they want next out of it. And most of us have this sort of existential angst around, hey, I know something's off, but I can't put my finger on exactly what that is. Corey, talk a little bit about what you do and how it relates to that dynamic.
Sure. Jay, thanks for having me. I help people find their God-given gifts and monetize those gifts, right? Your millions are in your mind. I say, let's get them out. Let's get you paid for it. Let's figure out the thing you are supposed to do here that you're uniquely called and positioned to do.
And what does that usually look like in an application? Does that require somebody to completely scrap what they're doing?
No, not necessarily. So I have, some people want to scrap what they're doing, right? But you don't have to scrap what you're doing. I think sometimes people are afraid that if they really dig too deep, that they'll have to upend their entire lives. And the truth is that they don't. I have a proprietary 10-step framework that I put people through. It's extremely rigorous. We uncover stuff that people have never seen about themselves. And it's been there the whole time. So you can upend your life, or you can just tweak what you're doing to bring it more into alignment with what your gifts are.
Yeah, and the alignments part speaks a lot to me because I think a lot of us have a decent understanding of what our talents are, but our gifts might be that next level above. And when we don't have that clarity and alignment of those two together, there's just a lack of pop in everything that we do. And it's sort of a more faded out landscape versus that beautiful richness and tapestry. So I think you're going to have a lot of folks that are going to be interested in doing this type of work with you. What's the best way for them to start the process?
So, well, let me just respond to what you said, and then I'll tell you that in my framework, there are 10 areas of your life that we look at. And believe it or not, your skills and talents are just one of the 10 things that we look at. People often confuse them. But if people want to find me, they can find me at CoreyWillis.com. That's CORI Willis.com. And I'm happy to help people, give them what they need and point them in the right direction.
Awesome. Folks, I would highly encourage you to reach out to Corey. Putting this special sauce together is really game-changing for individuals, and it's really going to bring back that mojo into your life and have greater impact. So I highly encourage you to check out CoreyWillis.com. And with that, folks, we'll head back to the show. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to today's episode of No Pain, No Gain. I'm your host, Jay Rooke, and we are here today with Hale Dwoskin, author of the New York Times bestseller, The Sedona Method. Hale, talk a little bit about that individual that we were talking about just prior to the break, the one who is doing and saying all the right stuff. What's, the message, the next step for that person?
Well, the next step is to examine whether it's really the externals that are the problem. We, as a society, we tend to look at the external problem first, as opposed to what's off inside of the participants. And you don't need to worry about what's off in anybody else. I don't want to, that's a no-win game. If you're trying to fix anyone else, it's not going to turn out well for you or them. But you are responsible for your own inner world. And the more you take responsibility for that, the more that sense of self-mastery turns into mastery in whatever you try to do in your life. So when you recognize that your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs are coloring, if not creating, your outcomes, then you have the ability to stop being the victim and start being the master of your life. Most of us live as the victim of circumstances. Mm-hmm. And to the degree you feel like the victim of circumstances, you get to be that.
Yep.
It's not fun,
right?
But it's not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can discover just by your own experimentation with letting go that when you stop believing that this is going to be hard, it's no longer hard. Yes. When you stop believing everyone's against me, you find people who want to support you.
Yes. Yes.
When you stop believing that there's a scarcity of customers, you discover there's always an abundance of customers. Mm-hmm. When you stop believing that you can't be your own boss, then you discover that in addition to hard work and doing the right things, changing your attitude makes it possible for you to be an amazing entrepreneur.
Yes.
So all that has to do with taking charge of your inner life. Mm-hmm. And this is not a harsh thing. It's actually a wonderful thing, because when you let go, you don't only free yourself from what's holding you back, you free yourself to feel the inner strength, the inner certainty, the inner light, and the inner actual joy and calmness and peace that's at everyone's core, right. Not just the chosen few. Mm-hmm. Everybody has that at their core, but we've got it covered over by our crap, for lack of a better term.
Right.
And when you uncover it, it shines through more and more, and it gets easier and easier, because that light is wanting to come out. Mm-hmm. That power is wanting to come out.
Yes.
That your inner strength and certainty wants you to succeed. Yeah. And if you stop obstructing it, it happens naturally.
Yes. And that's a painful message for many of us to hear that are earlier on the path. It's like, oh man, so this is all my fault? How did I get myself into this? And I think back to a spiritual mentor of mine. He used to study under a contemporary of yours with Alan Cohen. And he would always remind me that Alan would tell him, the struggle is optional. Suffering is optional. It doesn't need to be part of the path.
Yes. No, I've said that for years too. It's a common expression. It must be, because I wasn't quoting it. I just said suffering's optional. And then I discovered afterwards that I'm probably the 20,000th person to say that.
The message
but
is
universal,
right?
It's really true.
Yeah.
It's really true. From my experience, challenges are not optional. That's part of life.
Yes.
Setbacks are not optional. That's part of life. Things not always going the way you want them to are not optional. Mm-hmm. That's part of life.
Yeah.
But the suffering is something that we create by our inner reactions to what's happening. Mm. And when you let go of those inner reactions, you feel better, you don't suffer, but then you deal more appropriately to what life is serving you in the moment.
Yeah.
And you discover that it's never your fault, but you can master any situation.
Yes.
There's this hesitancy to recognize that somehow we're involved in creating our experience because we don't want to get blamed.
Right.
We don't mind taking credit for it when it goes well, but it doesn't always go well, so we don't want to be blamed.
Right.
But when you recognize that there's this inner power and inner certainty and inner knowingness that's guiding you when you get out of the way, you realize that's not really you personally. That's a universal thing.
Yep.
That's available to each and every one of us in every moment. And so you take less personal credit for your wins,
yes.
but also you don't have to blame yourself when it doesn't work out. It just is how it is. And you respond to how it is in this moment. Most of the time we're responding to how it was, mm-hmm. or how it might be, or we want it to be, mm-hmm. but we're not responding to how it is. And that's one of the reasons that businesses fail.
Yep.
Is, I had a great idea 10 years ago. It's time to do it. Well, did you check to see if it's still a great idea?
Right.
Well, no.
Yes. Yes.
And we live in a very fast-paced world right now because of how much of our worlds are centered around the digital world. Mm-hmm. The digital world changes instantaneously.
Yeah.
And so you need to be able to change instantaneously too and adapt to what's actually here now. Mm-hmm. And it's so much easier when you're letting go of what was and what might be.
Yes. And it's interesting, there's such grace in what you're describing. And as you're talking about these challenges and setbacks not being optional parts of life, I think the traditional American Western response to that is we think, oh yes, resilience and grit and tough it out. which sounds more of like that fight it and Tony Robbins wrestle it to the ground type mentality. But you're actually talking about more of the opposite of the surrender and the allowing and making peace with. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Good martial artists know that if you try to just use your own personal strength to win, you lose every time. Mm-hmm. But when you flow with where the moves are coming from, you actually use the opponent's power to defeat them. Now, life isn't quite like that because there's no win-lose in it. Mm-hmm. But what's the same is that when you flow with where the energy of life is flowing, you have infinite power behind you. It's only when you're in resistance that your power is cut off. Yes. And forcing yourself through is just trying to push the river upstream, and you're going to end up drowning. But when you flow with where the river is going, you're carried to your destination. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And as you're describing that, I think for those that are beginning to explore this process, some of the symptoms or indicators that we might be in resistance is that things feel hard, things feel onerous, things feel overwhelming. There's lots of to-dos, there's lots of busy work, there's lots of things that are on our shoulders, and lots of like do or die type consequences in our head around like, if I don't do this, and the whole project's going to fail, and round and round we go, and then we're in a tizzy and completely disconnected from source.
Totally. Now, you can still, interestingly enough, though, the body, mind can still be very busy without the stress.
Yes.
That's another big misconception. If you're busy, there has to be stress. Or there has to be stress in order for you to feel motivated to keep going. Mm-hmm. The opposite is true. Yes. When you love what you're doing, and you're saying yes to each action, and you're just doing what you're doing when you're doing it, and not doing what you're not doing when you're not doing it. Yeah. To quote a friend of mine, Jerry Stocking, when you're doing that, then there's this sense of flow and ease and support and certainty and purpose that actually supports you. It enlivens you. It nourishes you instead of draining you and causing stress, tension, anxiety, and burnout and inner explosions. Yes. And you're actually way clearer about what action is the most appropriate in this moment. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We also get ahead of ourselves and try to do actions we're not ready for, or we don't allow ourselves to do the actions that are appropriate in this moment because we haven't really completed in our own inner sense the actions we've already taken. So when you let go, then each action becomes more and more appropriate in this moment. Yes. And it feels quantitatively different. And the results are quantitatively different.
Yep. Sadhguru talks about how, the humans are the only species that try to be more of themselves all of the time.
Right.
He talks about, you don't see the tiger wandering around the jungle thinking to himself, I need to be more tiger. He just is. And as you're describing what you're saying, I feel like one of those cues that lets us know when we're in that state is that those next actions that we keep taking aren't to-dos necessarily so much as expressions of ourselves.
Exactly. Yes. How we already are.
Yes. And that's just like that true stone to come back to over and over, around where to start to sequence from.
Right.
Hal, I'm loving this conversation. Let's do this. Take a final commercial break, and when we come back, would love to talk about some of the techniques of the Sedona method, and maybe we can actually do a quick technique and application.
Sure. Sounds great.
Excellent, folks. I'm your host, Jay Rooke. We're here today with Hale Dwoskin. We'll be right back after the break.
Episodes filled with knowledge from experienced entrepreneurs. This is No Pain, No Gain.
Hey, what's up, No Pain, No Gain listeners? I'm here with Brad Hart, a former guest on the program. Brad is the founder of Make More Marbles, and he's all about teaching other entrepreneurs how to build mastermind groups so that they can leverage their income, get more time, and make more impact. Brad, tell us a little bit about mastermind groups and who should be considering forming one.
So that's a great question, Jay, and thanks so much for having me back. The Mastermind group is a really great way. If you have a one-on-one coaching or consulting practice, if you're an entrepreneur that wants to have higher impact, higher income with less time, you can add an additional 6 figures or more to your business in profit with about additional 5 to 10 hours a month of work. And it's high impact, high leverage time, and can really create the breakthroughs the highest level clients deserve from you.
One of the things that I noticed is everyone's throwing out, hey, this will add 6 figures to your bottom line. And I think it can be a little gun shy at times. But one of the things that's awesome about mastermind groups is that it's absolutely true, because the amount of time that it takes is really just to fill the group and get that enrollment going and design it right. But once you've got it set, like you said, not only are you delivering impact, but you've also created this nice, reliable, and consistent recurring revenue stream for yourself that has the ability to scale in a way that one-on-one coaching programs doesn't.
True. Yeah. And you'll notice, like, if you're a coach or consultant, you've worked one-on-one for a while, people have the same 12, 15, 20 problems, right? They come up again and again and again. So you end up repeating yourself much of the time. With a mastermind group, you can not only help the people who are having that problem in real time, but also give people breakthroughs even when they're not on the hot seat, which I think is one of the main benefits. Another thing that is really great is just having that consistency of cash flow. It's not just a program you sell people into one time and then, in a month or 2 months or 3 months, you're back to square one. I've had mastermind members pay monthly for over 2 years, which is really great. So that's some of the pieces that I really love about it. It's high impact more so than an online course. It's high income more so than just traditional coaching one-on-one would allow.
All day. And I think another aspect that I love that doesn't come out in the P&L necessarily, but is the almost isolation of being a coach at times. We're only doing the one-on-one work. And I love the sense of intimate business community and almost family that a mastermind creates. And I think it really helps break down some of the barriers of the social isolation of being an entrepreneur as well.
So what I really love about mastermind groups is it's an opportunity to create your own little tribe. Growing up, I didn't have the tribe that I wanted. I don't think a lot of people do. And you grow older and you become, proficient in your career or business, but you haven't really created intentionally a group of your own peers. And this is an opportunity to create that. And not only to create that, but to give that gift to other people and to be paid at the same time. So I think that's a really beautiful thing. And you end up becoming like a little small family, supporting each other, holding each other accountable to their best version of themselves. That trust that forms and the clarity you get out of that is just a beautiful thing. It's one of my favorite things in life. That's why I tell everybody, masterminds are my number one tool in my toolkit. If I had to throw everything else out and start over, I would keep masterminds.
Hands down. Sometimes when we do quick around the horn in my mastermind groups, and when it comes to me, I'll often talk about how the mastermind group is one of the most favorite things that I've ever pursued in my professional life. So Brad, let's pretend I'm out there, I'm listening. I'm like, yes, this is for me. I'm ready to take some next step. I want to learn a little bit more, understand what it takes to launch a mastermind group, what I need to be thinking about, etc. What's a good way for somebody to start with you?
So a great way to start would be to check out buildamastermind.com. We have some great free content there. We have a great case study that you can look at just to understand what it's all about and what goes into starting and running a mastermind. And then if you're interested in jumping on with us, we can discuss this quick call, just see if it's a good fit, and then really dial in on a longer call if it is, to get clear on your particular situation, how we can support you in creating your own mastermind. The group's been running a while now. We've had some incredible success stories. And it's not just running the mastermind, it's how to market it, how to position it, how to sell it. And these high ticket sales can be a little bit daunting, especially if you haven't done them before. So we make sure that you have everything that you need. We've actually partnered up with a great travel partner who can help you facilitate world-class experiences around the world. We have guest speakers that come in very often that can add different strategies to your tool belt, like building Facebook groups and ads and all these different things. So it's a really robust program, and I'm always looking to continue to create more value in it and add more incredible experiences over time for the people. And my ultimate goal is to create enough masterminds where I can go anywhere in the world, and there's a mastermind I helped create that I can go and visit. I think that would be really cool. So I hope yours is one of those, and I'd love to speak to you about it.
Awesome, folks. So you heard it here. Brad Hart. If you haven't heard Brad's episode yet, make sure to go back and check it out. He's got his own fascinating entrepreneurial journey. But if you're interested in learning more about your own mastermind and launching your own program and having your own tribe that you're starting to cultivate and support, Brad, the URL one more time.
Yeah, it's buildamastermind.com, or you can go through Jay's special link, which is mrbls.co/jrooke, all one word and lowercase. So mrbls.co.com/jrooke.
Awesome. Folks, if you have any questions, shoot me a note. Otherwise, we'll have the links and URLs to this in the show notes. Brad, thanks so much. And I hope some of the listeners reach out and start some masterminds of their own.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to today's final segment in today's No Pain, No Gain episode. I'm your host, Jay Rooke, and we're here today with Hal Dwoskin, New York Times bestselling author of the book, The Sedona Method. Hal, talk to us a little bit about the Sedona Method book and the spirituality behind it, and wherever else you might like to go with that.
Okay, great. So basically, right here, right now, at your core, there is already wholeness, completeness, ease, certainty, and great light, peace, and joy. And you can discover from your own direct experience how to live this fully every moment in life. In my experience, the main thing we're here to do is to rediscover and then live from this place of joy and light and peace. And it is the source of happiness, and it is the source of love. And when you live from the source, you bring love to relationships. You bring happiness to everything that you do. You stop looking for it outside of yourself, and you become the source. So you bring happiness to the things you enjoy doing now, and you enjoy them more. And if you can't do them in this moment, or you have to wait till the next time you're going to do something that you think you need to do or have in order to be happy, you can be happy while you're not doing it.
Wait at the bus stop.
Right, exactly. So there's this natural ease and happiness and joy that is available to each and every one of us, moment to moment. And that has been my living experience for decades. And hundreds of thousands of people all over the world are discovering that for themselves. Yeah. They're doing that by letting go and also exploring that truth within them by asking themselves questions like, am I this person who's struggling with this problem? Or am I that which is aware of it? When you ask yourself questions like that, you instantly settle into that presence of awareness or beingness that you are, and that is always right within you. You bring it into the foreground. Most of us live in this very limited world in our minds, and it's very constricted. But when you open to that awareness that you are, it's boundless. And it also feels more heart-centered.
Yes.
It doesn't exclude the mind, but it comes more from your heart as opposed to your head. And so let me just explain that a little more. That's one of the tools of the Sedona method. It's one of our advanced tools. It's not a basic tool. And it's one of the things in Rhonda Byrne's new book, The Greatest Secret, is this focus on awareness as our natural state. So everyone listening to me, think of a place where you've been struggling. It doesn't matter what it is. And notice how personal that struggle feels.
Yes.
That sense of personhood in the struggle is actually the glue that holds the struggle together. So check, are you that person who's struggling? Or are you that which is aware of it? If you really look, you'll discover that you are the awareness that allows for all experience. Now, each time you see that, something shifts inside of you. You feel more relaxed, more open, more aware of everything around you. Life actually goes from being 2D to 3D. Yes. Your senses become more acute. And you feel more relaxed and open and comfortable within your own body. And your mind gets instantly clearer because you're coming more from your authentic self. So let's do that again. Allow yourself to just think of any issue in your life that you're wanting to change or improve. And then notice how invested you are in it. and just feel the investment. And then in this moment, are you the one who's invested, or are you that which is aware of it? As you recognize that you are the awareness, the investment dissolves. And when you're not invested in trouble, it drops away by itself. Yeah. We don't realize how much when we invest in our suffering and in our troubles and in our limiting beliefs and stories about ourselves. The stories aren't the problem. It's our investment in them. Mm-hmm. Our thinking it's all about me personally. Yeah. And so each time you see through that, the whole structure loosens. Yeah. And you come from this place of power and joy and peace, as opposed to a place of contraction and doubt and pain. Yes. So let's do that again. Focus on anything in your life where you still feel some investment in things not being the way you want them to be. Okay. And could you just welcome whatever that stirs up inside of you? Could you just let it be here? And then could you check, are you actually that? Or are you that which is aware?
Radically different paradigms.
Radically different. Yes. Yet, you're still the person doesn't have to change. Right. It's just that you're not locked into the person. It goes from being who you think you are to the role you play in life, to your avatar in the game.
Yes.
Most of us are so invested in the game of life that we don't realize that the role we're playing is just the avatar on the game board or in the virtual reality. Well, who we actually are is the source of the avatar. Yeah. And when you rest as source, then you can discern what to do with the avatar much more effectively. But more importantly, at source, if the avatar is in a tight spot, it doesn't feel like you're in a tight spot. Mm-hmm. At source, if the avatar is down in the game, it's not the end of the world. It just means you've got to get back up and do better. Right. So as the one who's aware, you are also in tune with that same awareness that is in everyone and everything. It's the same awareness in you and me. It's the same awareness in 7.7 billion other people. Yeah. It's the same awareness in all plants, all animals, even in all inanimate objects.
Yes. I think about that huge connection of mycelium under the ground and just spanning for miles and miles type of thing amongst all of us. And it's fascinating as you took us through that exercise, as I started to notice the difference between those two worlds. And I noticed not only that, like you said, my resistance is what was holding the glue of that together, but also how much energy that took for me to keep pumping that resistance into it and keeping that charge activated the whole time versus the other one of how much more freeing and energy conserving that was. And then physically, I started to note kind of fronts of the shoulder tension and sort of bracing for impacts or, curling in, like you said, protecting ourselves versus opening up and not being protective and defending myself between the two mindsets.
Yeah. Did you notice how the body would just relax just by you noticing that?
Absolutely.
Again, most of us are going through life as the hood ornament. And so we're really close to where the crash zone is. Yeah. Whereas if you're sitting in the driver's seat, you can relax a lot more.
Yes.
But we're not a hood ornament. We are the driver. I love and that. Even more than that, we are that which makes the whole dance possible. Mm. And when you even just taste that perspective, it changes everything else. And each time you taste it, it gets sweeter. Mm. It gets more open. It feels more natural because it's unnatural to be a hood ornament.
Yes.
It's unnatural to be so caught up in struggle and strife and suffering that we don't see a way out.
And unlike some habits where we sort of just hold on to them sometimes by just sheer willpower, which really aren't that successful of habits at the end of the day, what you're talking about here, that level of awareness, once we break into that, it's really hard to go back to the old because the contrast is so glaring and it's so self-inflicted. And once we get the awareness, it feels so much worse that it takes, in my experience anyhow, lots of extra work to stay there.
Yes. So you discover that most of us are trying to quiet our minds because we know that the noise in the mind is a distraction and it also is uncomfortable. But as you discover this awareness is who you are, then it gets harder and harder to get lost in the noise.
Yes.
And you notice the difference. If we're drowning in poo, we don't realize we're drowning in poo. But once we get our neck above the poo, it's like, oh, it's a whole other world. Right. It's a whole new world. Do I want to dive back into that? Not so much. That's enough.
Yes, totally. Thank you. I really appreciate that exercise. Anything else that we should talk about on that topic?
Well, just that, recognize that feelings are just feelings. They're not facts, and they're not you, and you can let them go. Just being open to that, you'll start actually letting go of the feelings that are holding you back. And also allow yourself to be open at least to the possibility that you are the awareness in every experience. You're not bound to the experience. You're not the victim of the experience. You're not being dragged behind the bus. And the more you recognize that your center is as awareness, as opposed to as the struggling person, the more the person can relax and do what it's here to do.
Yeah.
There's this wonderful cooperation that starts to happen between the source of all creation, the source of all power, the source of all light, the source of all love, and that which you often appear to be as a person. The two start to cooperate. And when there's cooperation, oh my God,
right.
the possibilities are limitless.
Yes. I love that. And from my experience, when those two do start to align, it's like that Midas touch, Michelangelo type thing around. It takes such little effort to make amazing things happen. And I just sit back in the glee and wonder of things seemingly falling in my lap, even though we know that's not really what's going on. It's just the alignment working in our favor.
Right.
Yeah. Hale, talk a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, about your participation in the movie The Secret. I'm fascinated about this because it's one of those seminal works. I'm still not sure if there's something bigger in the personal development, enlightenment, raising consciousness type of space that's been that mass produced isn't the right word I'm searching for, but that it's had the reach that The Secret has had.
The Secret had an amazing reach. Amazing. I have a very small part in the movie because when Rhonda interviewed me for the movie, by the way, I don't know if most people don't know this, The Secret started out as just a series of interviews at a meeting that I was at and almost everyone in the movie was at. We have an organization called the Transformational Leadership Council that I helped create, but I'm not an active member at the moment. But anyway, when I was interviewed for The Secret, Rhonda was so interested in my work that she only asked me about The Secret at the very end because she wanted me to be in the movie. And she was intending to do a movie actually about letting go, and she never got around to that movie. But 14 years after The Secret, this alignment happened last year when the pandemic first started. And my wife and I were walking and we said, we really want to find a way to get this out to more people because letting go right now, it's so important. If without it, people are really going to struggle more than they need to. Yeah. And we just let go on that and said, okay, if it's supposed to happen, it will. And about a week or two later, I heard from Rhonda and her sister, Glenda, and they said, we want you to be part of Rhonda's latest book, The Greatest Secret.
Nice.
And we found out later that Lester and I and the Sedona method are probably the most visible part of that book. Oh, cool. And also several of the teachers in The Greatest Secret are students.
How cool.
And so the next step, Rhonda believes, and I agree, is learning how to let go to get yourself out of the way, and also learning that you are this presence of awareness or beingness that's behind the show, without which there would be no show. And that is the next step in evolution for us as a planet, I believe. It's a way out from all the struggle. It's a way out from all the conflict. It's a way out from all the suffering.
Yes.
And because of that, I think this is going to be a much more gradual build than The Secret was, because it's starting out as a book. The Secret started out as a movie.
Right.
And when something starts as a movie and it gets lots of PR, it explodes. But right now, getting PR for a book about consciousness in the middle of all the things that are going on, it's not happening.
Yes.
But the book is selling like crazy anyway, and it's already helping a lot of people. And so The Secret was the first step. Rhonda and I believe that the greatest secret is the most important step.
Love that.
And so what the Sedona method is about is how to live that in your life, both practically and spiritually, because the two are completely aligned. It's not one or the other.
Yeah.
And so there's an invitation in the greatest secret to step beyond all the things that have been holding you back. You know, many of you probably have tried to apply the law of attraction. But if you don't deal with everything inside of you that's saying no or holding back from that, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But when you get yourself out of the way, to the degree that you get yourself out of the way, to the degree it actually starts to work.
Yes.
And so it's really fun to be part of that. It's really fun to be part of that. It's and one of the things I'm doing now is I started my own podcast. I haven't launched yet, but I've done, I don't know how many interviews yet. I've lost track, but maybe 10, 15 interviews.
Yeah.
Interviewing the teachers in The Secret and The Greatest Secret, and some other teachers that I really respect. And that's going to be my podcast, talking about where The Secret meets The Greatest Secret, and also just really concentrating on the teachings in The Greatest Secret. And I'm really excited about it because, and even Rhonda has agreed to be part of it. Rhonda's probably going to be one of the first interviews I release. I've already interviewed her.
Oh, that's awesome.
So all that is coming out soon. So that's pretty exciting.
Super exciting. And actually, so perfect timing. You know, we're just about wrapping up here. To that end, I'm sure listeners would love to follow you, get engaged with more of your content. Where can listeners follow and engage with you?
So the easiest place is to go to our website, Sedona.com, and it's like the city, Sedona.com. You can also connect with us on YouTube, the Sedona Method YouTube channel. We have over 200 free videos with really powerful content. Wow. And then the Sedona Method Facebook group has new content on it every day. Awesome. So those are the three best ways to connect with us.
Wonderful. And we really look forward to hearing about the launch of your podcast. And so when that happens, shoot us a note. We'll update the show notes and have a link to that as well.
Okay, cool.
Excellent. Well, Hale, on behalf of myself and all of our listeners, I just want to say thank you for carving the time out today. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I think this topic is just going to be a massive leverage point to people's happiness and unlocking what they really want for themselves. So thank you for your sharing.
No, thank you for having me. It was really fun.
Excellent. Folks, that's it for another episode of No Pain, No Gain. I'm your host, Jay Rooke. Special thanks to Hal Dwoskin, and we will catch you on the next episode.
For more raw conversations from experienced entrepreneurs, visit jrooke.com.